We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and pay respect to their elders and the elders from other communities who may be here today. We also acknowledge all other people who have contributed to the rich diversity of this country. Would the council please be upstanding for the statement of commitment, please? I
declare that as councillor of Melville City, I will undertake my dedication to carry out my duties in the best interests of the community, and that my conduct shall maintain the standards of our council code of conduct, so that I may faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in the council by the people of Melville District.
Thank you very much. I'll remind you that the meetings are recorded and being live streamed through YouTube. Behaviour, as always, should be exemplary, and it always is. There is a change to conflict of interest. So, under the new Local Government Act of 2020, a councillor who has a conflict must declare that conflict now and state what the conflict of interest is, the general material and the circumstances give rise to the conflict, and they also must remove themselves when that item agenda comes up. So, does anyone have any conflicts? Okay, also run with face masks. At the moment, face masks must be worn at all times unless you're speaking. So, when you wish to speak, you can remove the face mask. At the time, please keep the face mask on. Do we have any apologies? Bill. Confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. I'd like to Councillor Davis and Councillor O'Brien. All those in favour? Question time? Nope. Do we have any petitions? Nope. A record of committees. 8.1, the Finance and Operations Committee. The recommendation is on page 8 at the report and recommendations of the Finance and Operations Committee meeting held on Wednesday the 27th of January 2021 to be adopted. Someone move that. Councillor Davis, Councillor Hanratney. Would you like to speak on that, Councillor Davis?
No, thank you.
Councillor Hanratney?
No, thank you, Chair.
Would anyone else like to speak? All those in favour? That's carried. 8.2, Planning and Development Committee. Recommendation is on page 23. Councillor Byrne. You may remove your mask while you speak.
The recommendation of item 6, the use for a restricted recreation facility, health and fitness centre at 4143 Church Street, Benalla. I would like to delete item 17 of the recommendation, and it will be done under delegation instead, if I can have someone second.
Thank you. Yes, we'll exercise. Would you move to exercise that?
Yes.
Under 17. Motion, Councillor Davis.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favour? That's carried. Anything else? So that's sort of like that matter there. So,
Mr. Chair, can I move the balance to the planning, 8.2 Planning Development Committee, balance with that exercise out of it?
thank you. Seconded, Councillor Hearn. All those in favour? Would anyone else like to speak on that? That's carried. Or 8.3, Assembly of Councils Advisory and External Committees. Recommendations and report be noted on page 25. No changes. Does someone like to move that? Councillor Hearn, Councillor Hanratney. Let's speak, Councillor Hearn.
Thank you.
Councillor Hanratney.
No, thank you, Chair.
Would anyone else like to speak? All those in favour? Carried. Item number 9, reports by applicants.
Mr. Chair, did we actually pass the, councillor Hearn's, change of, did we actually vote on that?
Yes, we did.
Sorry. Thank you.
We did.
No, I don't think
I don't think we did. Point of order. We excised
Order
it.
on it.
No, on the chair.
We did pass it, but I didn't ask if anyone would like to speak on it, so if
we-
Sorry.
anyone would like to speak.
No, that's fine.
No, thank you.
Everyone clear on that?
Thank you.
Motion? Sorry, okay.
Thank you.
Item number 9, reports by officers. Councillor 9.2, Mayor and Councillors attendance at committees and civic functions. Does anyone have any amendments to that list? Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the 16th of December, Information Technology iPad Workshop. I did not attend that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Mayor. On 19th of January, Churchill Reserve Committee of Management. I did not attend that. I was an apology. And on 16th of January, I attended the dinner wind-up of the Australian Junior Gliding Club Local Series Youth Glide. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hearn.
just on the 16th, the Information Technology iPad Workshop, I didn't attend either.
Thank you. Are there any other amendments? If not, the recommendation is the report be noted with those changes. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Hearn and Councillor Firth. Speak on that, Councillor Hearn.
No, thank you.
Councillor Firth.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Would anyone else like to speak? All those in favour? Uh, 9.3, draft Penalla Rural City Council Code of Conduct. Yes, Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Just very briefly, Section 139 of the Local Government Act 2002 requires the council to develop a council code of conduct within 4 months of a general election. Obviously, that document is attached to the recommendation this evening. I will take that as read, and I will just point out to the councillors that we will look to execute the signatures on page 29 of that document post this meeting.
Thank you. Are there any questions, Mr. Testoni, on the council code of conduct? If not, the recommendation that the Penalla Rural City Council Code of Conduct be adopted and signed. I'd like to move that, Councillor Firth and Councillor O'Brien. Councillor Hearn, sorry. Would you like to speak, Councillor Hearn?
No, thank you.
Councillor O'Brien.
No, thank you, Chair.
Would anyone else like to speak? All those in favour? Carried. Councillor Chin pending. We have one question which has been coming up since
Oh, yes.
November 19.
That's not too far.
Mr. Testoni, would you like to comment on that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As per previous meetings, I'll just take that as read. Still working my way through that, but in all seriousness, I did have actually a strange conversation not long ago where they were thinking about actually not doing it, but when I investigated that information was actually incorrect, so I am still following that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on that? If not, the recommendation is the report be noted. That's on page 37. Move that. Councillor King, Councillor Davis, like to speak?
No, thank you.
Councillor Davis, anyone else like to speak? All those in favour? Reports by councillors. Do you have any reports, Councillor Firth?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of reports to council with regards to on Australia Day. I was fortunate enough to be invited out to the Lima community for a a really good turnout of the people of Lima and district, and we had a wonderful time in the rain. Absolutely poured on us, but nobody stopped. Still raised the flag. It was a little bit soggy by the time I got up there, but anyway, it was really wonderful to see so many people, and people keep thinking that some of these outlying villages and areas are, slowly dying away, but from what I can see, they're not. They're going ahead in leaps and bounds. The other thing that I would like to bring to the council's attention is Councillor Hearn and myself attended the Benalla Indoor Recreation Centre Committee of Management meeting, and once again, well attended. That is something that the Benalla really needs to get behind. We've been talking about it, putting it on the council plan for some time for the redevelopment of the indoor recreation centre. We talked to them with regards to the effects that COVID's had on them. One of the main effects that came out of that discussion was the fact that our children, as all societies all over the world, have been missing out on sport, and that is such a huge thing for our community. And going forward, I really do hope that the governments can continue to put their hands in their pockets and come up with some grants for this community to redevelop that particular facility, because we really do need it. A growing community. If anybody's noticed it or had a look at that facility lately, you can see that it's simply not fit for purpose anymore, and we really do need to redevelop it and expand it so for our community in the future that's now becoming far greater younger families coming to Benalla and being able to, if they can see that we've got proper sporting facilities in this community, they will come and they'll be happier doing that. So I'd just like to bring that to the councillors, Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Firth. Councillor Hearn.
Mr Chair, just through you, I'd like to just add to what Councillor Firth has just said. The fact that it's growing, the numbers actually, they were reported like large numbers in life ball, and table tennis had grown immensely, and that they were undertaking conversations with what was it, foosball or something like that. That's going to trying to work out if they can go there too on a Wednesday night, and also another badminton group were going to start in have a morning session. So what Councillor Firth is saying is very correct, and that we do need to really start pushing this because it is so outdated.
Thank you very much. Are there any other reports? If not, I have a couple. One, the CEO and myself attended a roundtable discussion with Helen Haynes from the Indi region, and what Helen is doing is looking at opportunities to put towards the government for funding for the federal budget. And she has a submission to co-fund about $135 million worth of shovel-ready projects in the Indi area. The ones that affect Benalla directly are the Winton Motor Museum, which I think everyone's possibly aware of. They're looking for a $5 million grant so that they can set up a whole museum up there, which is a great project. The council has put a project up for $700,000 for the town hall to bring it back up to a stage where we can use it for functions and for live events. And Tomorrow Today have asked Helen to put up a proposition for their peak program. They're after $175,000 a year for 3 years, which they will match through philanthropic funding, and we're more than happy to do that. It's a great thing that peaks do. So Helen has organised I think, half an hour with the treasurer sometime in March. So she'll be putting these to the treasurer. So to have you as a treasurer for half an hour is pretty important. So hopefully she'll get some of this funding up. And the other interesting meeting we had was with Minister Danny Pearson, who was the Minister for Creative Funding. He came to the gallery, but, sorry? No, it's the Minister for Creative Arts, yes, you're right. So he just came to have a look at the gallery. It was his department that supplied the $3 million to the gallery. And he was I think he very much enjoyed the current exhibition. He and his crew had a great look around. They spent an hour, I suppose, there. The indications were that he felt that the Benalla Gallery filled a niche, sort of a spot between large galleries and small regional or small rural galleries, and he sort of felt that there was an opportunity for Benalla to progress that. So it was a very informative and very good meeting. And he said he'll be back.
Good.
And that's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, I forgot to report on my meeting. I went to a couple. I went to the my first health and wellbeing community meeting with his partnership with so many agencies. It's so amazing to know that all of these people are in our area, and some of them are from here, but some from Shepparton and other areas as well. So that was great, very informative, and they all complimented the support that they're getting from Northern City Council, which was great. And then the other meeting that I attended was the initial meeting of the community plan members. So this is just getting ready, really. It was just talking about working out a time frame structure for meetings. It's very difficult when there's quite a few people on that group. Jane Archibald, who's the chair at the moment, is in the middle of just sending out emails to people, having people put in their preferences. And while we realise that we may not be able to have everybody there on the same day, but we can sort of work around it. So, people were just talking about what they wanted, and we were encouraged to try and get other people from the community that are perhaps a little bit more diverse than what are already on there, i.e. maybe some younger people and things like that. So I've actually put out a few emails to people that I know as well. And so it's all started, which is great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. If there's no other reports, the recommendation that the reports be noted is on page 39. Move Councillor Hearn, second Councillor King, subsequent Councillor Hearn. Anyone else like to speak? All those in favour? That's carried. Item number 11, notices of motion. We have two notices of motion that have been brought to us by Councillor King. Would you like to speak on those, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll redirect. So notice of motion 21/01 seeking development of COVID-19 support initiatives. Point 1, that the council develop a COVID-19 support initiative, BCSI, that provides advice and support to the Benalla community through 2021-2022. 1.1, that the council develop a community 2021-22 BCSI document directory that provides current advice and information relating to COVID-19 supports, including local providers and agencies, government departments and sectors from across the state. 1.2, that the council undertake a review to consider local supports for the Benalla community as part of the BCSI. And 1.3, that the council consider the adoption of the final BCSI document upon its completion, and the review be considered during the council's budget process of 2021 and 2022.
King, are there any questions of Councillor King on that? Yes, Councillor Davis.
Thank you, through the Chair, Councillor King. A really good motion, and I fully support it. However, down on 1.3, the last couple of sentences, review be considered during the council budget process. It just scares me a bit that that we might have to delve into our budget for funding. So could you just please elaborate on that?
Absolutely, Councillor Davis. The review is to, as we go through the budget process, we're going to sort of be looking at ways in which the council will be obviously funding programs, funding initiatives, and looking at the next 12 months in what our budget looks like. And so through this review, if there are ways that we feel we can support our community, and how that might look as a way of being budgeted, then obviously through our budget process, that's where we'll do that. I don't think this notice of motion is committing the council for any financial commitment to the BCSI. This is us as a part of the process. We're already starting to look at whether there are means of opportunity for us to support our community further.
Are there any other questions for Councillor King? Okay, the recommendation is on page 39, and that is, you will move that recommendation.
Thank you.
King,
Yes.
do you have a seconder? Councillor O'Brien. Should I just
Yeah.
second the motion from King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, as we all know, as it stands right now in our community, people are doing it tough, people are doing it good, but as we go through the challenges of 2021, it's important that I believe that we adapt and adopt the ways in which we support our community as circumstances around us are continually changing. This notice of motion tonight sets out one of two things. The first being that council help to provide the community with information in regards to what's out there at the moment. Across the state, across the country, there is a lot of funding, there is a lot of support, there is a lot of government agencies and departments and private stakeholders that are providing communities and people with direct support. And through this notice of motion, the directory that's being proposed tonight is helping us to put that into a document that our community can access and know where to go to access support. Over the Christmas break, I use an example of I had a person I know in Benalla approach me, and he said that the job that he was working at was coming to an end, and that's because the COVID funding that he was getting through the federal government was running out, and he was heading back to Melbourne because he couldn't pay his rent. And from that initial discussion, I sent him a couple of emails with some links to agencies and supports, and he was able to pick up some rent assistance support. Had he not had that engagement, had we not had that discussion, he'd probably be back in Melbourne now living with mum and dad. But he's still here because he was able to access that, picked up another job, and he still calls Benalla home. So as we know out there right now, there's a lot of support. There is a lot of funding and opportunity for people to access on all levels of government. And what this notice of motion does is, what I believe local government's core purpose is to support community. And so putting this together, we're going to provide our community with a one-stop shop of information that they can access either online or in the community centre, in the customer service centre, so that they know where to start. Because I think a lot of people struggle to know, well, I need assistance, but where do I start? Where do I go? And hopefully this may change one person's life. And if it does, then that's a huge benefit for our community. And the second part is how we as a council can consider our support through this process. And as I've just sort of mentioned to Councillor Davis, this is around council, as we go through our process, looking at where there might be ways that we can support. And I think that that's important, that we also can continue to play our part within our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor O'Brien, would you like to speak?
Yes, please, through the Chair. I would just like to say that I think they're both great initiatives for Benalla Rural City to take up. I think COVID has certainly highlighted lots of, people just really, really struggling that have never ever had to ask for help before. And I think this is a really big issue. I think if we've got information there that's readily accessible for people, hopefully they will not feel that they're having to ask for help, that they realise that it's out there for everybody. So I think it's great working towards having a healthy community post-COVID and as we continue through it.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Would anyone else like to speak? No, all those in favour? It's carried. Second brought to us Councillor King is 11.2. Would you like to speak on that, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll get these out of my system. Notice of motion 2021-02, hosting a community and sporting group summit to understand the impacts of COVID-19. Point 1, that the council invite representatives from sporting and community clubs to participate in roundtable discussions to identify the challenges faced during the COVID-19 pandemic, with the intent to better understand the impacts of the pandemic with a specific focus on financial impact, participation rate impact, members and volunteers, and social impact. Point 2, that the round table or alternative one-on-one discussions be facilitated in accordance with COVID-19 requirements by the Waste and Recreation Coordinator, Community Development Coordinator, and Volunteer Development Coordinator in the normal cycle of interactions, i.e. Committee of Management meetings across 3 months. Options of MS Teams and Zooms can be offered as a second means of facilitating discussions if required. 3.3, that the council use the summit as an exercise to collect information. Point 4, that the council draft the information collected into a document that captures the impact of COVID-19 on sporting clubs and community groups within our community. And point 5, that the report be developed and presented to council for adoption and be provided to federal and state members for consideration.
Thank you, Councillor King. Are there any questions for Councillor King? Councillor Davis?
Councillor King, dot point 5 would, says for consider for adoption, which is great, and to be provided to the state and federal members. On what Councillor Hearn and Councillor Beth were saying before, would not that be type of information used to get sporting grants, whether it be for lights on the around the street oval or for sporting facilities? So is that the idea of your point 5?
Point 5 is to, once we've done the community consultation, we've developed that into a report, that the findings of that consultation be finalised and presented to our local members, to our local state and federal members. But also within that, absolutely, if there are means for us to be able to capture the needs of things like the facilities like the drill hall, the basketball stadium, that we use this as an opportunity to also promote what support or funding and opportunity is required.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Councillor King? Councillor Navarrete?
A good motion, Councillor King. Just one question about the sporting clubs and community groups. What is the selection process for community groups, especially because there can be a lot of community groups when we talk about this and affected by COVID?
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gunnerady. In considering the community groups, what we would do is we look at that based on registered community groups, and I'm aware that our council officer who would be working with myself on this has a spreadsheet of all our current registered community groups, and we would be reaching out to them, but we'd also be, I guess, engaging through our communications team to invite representatives from other groups who may not be registered but do provide input into the community to also participate as well. Again, this is about us collecting the information from every corner of every group of every sporting club so that we can be best placed to provide this report to our state and federal members as a broad spectrum of what COVID has had on our community.
Thank you, Councillor King.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes, Councillor.
Through the chair. Councillor King, I was just wondering too if including groups, community groups into this recommendation, if we could include senior school students. I think that they've been very impacted by COVID, so if we could just have their say, it would be quite enlightening for all of us, perhaps. What's your thoughts?
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. My thoughts on that would be, I think through this process, we'd actually engage that through the likes of, say, the Junior Football Club.
Mm-hmm.
So the representatives from that club would be providing us with information on the impact that's had on families, for instance, which would be coming from kids. So I think that this process would cover that demographic as well, and we can certainly cater the information and the questions that we'll be asking to capture that audience.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Councillor King? If not, Councillor King, would you like to speak on the motion?
Someone seconded?
Seconded? Sorry. One.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't speak too much to this one because I think it sort of speaks to itself. But as we know, in our community, our sporting clubs, our community groups have done it tough in the last 12 months as a result of COVID. Many clubs and sporting clubs didn't have a season last year. Many community groups didn't run events or functions, and the impact on them now is still being felt. It's being felt in their budget. It's being felt with players not returning. It's being felt by family members in our community who financially may not be able to see their kids go back and play sport again. So it is being felt in our community now. And these institutions of sporting and community groups play a major part in Benalla. And what this notice of motion does tonight is it puts us in a forward position to not only go to our state and federal members once the document's been adopted and say, this is what's happened, this is what's happening, how can you help us? But also through any upcoming grants, which was mentioned earlier, that may be available from the states or federal governments, that we can have this document ready to go, be on the front foot and ask for support and funding. This also gives our community members the opportunity to have their say and to provide council with some additional information which they may not feel that they can. So it's giving everyone that platform, everyone that opportunity to speak. And I think overall this will be a good document to have ready to go going into 2021.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Do you want to speak?
No, okay.
Would anyone else like to speak? Councillor Davis.
Thank you. Well done, Councillor King. It's a great recommendation. I think the best part about the whole lot of it is that when council have to make a decision, or when our CEO or mayor or councillors are talking to members of government, that we've got referenced information. And it's all very well to have a bit of hearsay or whatever, but we're going to have referenced information from all these groups that the CEO can use, or the mayor can use, councils can use. I think it's fantastic. So, good initiative from you. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Just on that matter, the CEO just suggested that there is funding out there for these sort of groups, so I really don't know enough about it.
Yeah, sorry, just, I know this is stepping outside the boundaries, but there is, the Victorian State Government have actually released, I just can't remember the name of it, but to assist families with registration fees. I think it's up to $200 for disadvantaged families, so I think for a community such as Benalla, it's very, very important, and it does tie into the motion from Councillor King that people are aware of that particular scheme. I think it's limited, and it is means tested to a certain degree, that there is a recognition from the state government that they would like to get families back into playing sport. And the name escapes me, but I will get it out. I think it's important that we do that.
Thank you, Councillor Hearn.
Can I just ask that as a council we get, because that sounds very interesting, that grant, and after speaking on Monday night to especially the basketballs with so many young players, if we could get that to our committees, like to the BERC, so that they can feed it through the sporting bodies, please.
Yes, I'm sure that the CEO will take that on board.
Yes.
Yes.
Councillor Generator, did you have Okay. The recommendation is on page 41, as read. Mover and seconder, all those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Item number 12, notice of rescission motions. Nil, urgent business. Confidential business. Someone move that we move to confidential business. Councillor Davis and Councillor Hearn. All those in favour? Thank you.
Aye, Simon.
Are you aware of that program?
Yeah.
Okay.